To help us line up these screws so that they sit flush, we can first drill a pilot hole. And now our screws will sit flush. To properly wrap Teflon tape, we'll first lay it almost vertically from bottom to top, then wrap downwards in a spiral motion. To make sure these cabinet hinges are installed properly, we'll first need to make a template. Using a piece of scrap wood, mark out the hinge and the holes. Push in 2 nails along the hinge line. Then mark out where the screws will go and drill the holes. Now we'll install the hinges. Everything lines up. We can make our own DIY garden auger for digging holes. We'll make 2 incisions on both sides of this diamond cutting wheel and attach it to the drill. Next, we'll make a brick texture roller. Start by cutting out foam rings and strips. Place them onto the roller brush and glue the strips on like so. Now we'll add some spackle to the wall and cover it with plastic wrap. Use the brush to roll out the brick texture. Sanding between gaps can be very tedious. We can add some duct tape to give the sandpaper some extra support. It's dangerous to use a planer or table saw without a push stick. We can make one using this paintbrush. Remove the bristles and cut out a notch in the handle. Now our fingers are safe. Let's add tape to the edge of our paint bucket. Keep our brush from dripping. This next project is making a rubber strap wrench. We want to drill a hole through this nut and then cut out notches on both sides. We'll insert the rubber strap like so, and then secure it with a bolt, tightening a nut on the other side. Now we can tighten the strap using the ratchet to loosen this oil filter. To fit these 2 pipes together, we can use a swaging drill bit. Using an angle grinder creates a lot of dust. A bit of double-sided tape will capture some of the dust and protect the shield. When finished, simply throw the tape away. Some screws just don't seem to want to hold on to the drill bit like we want them to. Luckily, we can use some double-sided tape once again to help us out. Add the tape to the drill bit and press the screw onto the tape. This knife is clearly dull. We can create a knife sharpening stand by drilling 2 holes into our stand and inserting the 2 stones. For our last project, we'll be creating an articulating arm that allows us to make straight marks across oddly shaped objects. We'll start by first drilling holes into each of the pieces of wood like so. Then we'll sand off the corners and edges of each piece. Next, we'll add bolts, washers, and nuts to each articulating joint and tighten. And the next piece will be screwed in perpendicularly. We'll screw in a smaller piece to the other end as well. Now we can mark straight lines, both on flat boards and even on the inside of this container. So sit back, relax, and let's start building. We're starting out by building a drill bit to help us clean our keyboards. We'll hot glue the head of a toothbrush to this bottle cap like so, and then attach it to the chuck of our drill. Now we can use the drill to help us brush away any loose dirt and debris from our keyboard. Let's convert our angle grinder into a circular saw. Screw in a large T-shaped door hinge to one end of this MDF. Then we'll attach the angle grinder to the long lever of the door hinge and make a slit in the MDF. Now we can use it just like a circular saw. We can use wing nuts as wire clips. We can pin these two sheets together with just a couple of zip ties and a couple of washers. Pass the first zip tie through the hole with a washer on both ends. Then use the second zip tie to fasten everything together. And lastly, just clip off the ends of the zip ties. Carrying large sheets of plywood is difficult and awkward. We can make a tool that can help us out. We'll solder this rebar together into a shape that looks like this. Then we'll add plastic tubing around the rebar for extra grip. We can see here how an expansion anchor works from the inside. Next, let's make an LED light that turns on when plugged into a USB outlet. First, we'll take a capacitor and solder it onto the USB plug. Then we'll solder on an LED light. Now we can plug in our light into our laptop or into a power adapter. Is there an easy way we can solve this equation if we don't happen to have a calculator? We can use this tape measure. Find the number we need and then fold the tape back on itself. We can even mark it in case we forget. Here's a helpful way to secure a chain to the stud by passing a bolt through the center. We'll need to add an adapter fitting to stop this faucet from leaking. First, we'll remove the faucet. Then, we'll add an extra metal fitting that we can safely heat up. Now we can use pliers to pull out the old fitting. We'll then use a pipe welding machine to make sure the new fitting fits nicely. Lastly, we'll screw our faucet back on. Now there's no more leaking. We can attach these razors to this comb with a binder clip and run it over our sweaters to remove any fabric pilling. Here's how we can cut this wood to fit this pipe through. Trace the pipe's circumference and then find its center. Now we can use a hole saw drill bit to cut out that circle. Our next project, we'll be making a little table using nothing but MDF and a router. Screw the board in place and then turn it to make perfectly round cuts. Now we'll cut the two legs so that they fit together. Then screw the tabletop onto the legs. It's that easy. We can round off these corners by first cutting a separate board in the shape that we want. And then we can use a special drill bit to trace along that board. We can turn these washers into a clip to hold rope together. Cut a notch out of the washers and pass a bolt through them. Wrap the first rope around the bolt and pass the other rope through the washers. Looks like this wrench isn't big enough to help us unscrew this cap. Let's use some rope and a square dowel instead. For our last project, we'll be making a miter joint with a thick spline in the center. We'll start by gluing two pieces together, cut at a 45-degree angle. Then we'll mark out where our spline will be using a pencil and a marking gauge. Saw out this area that we've marked out. And we can remove the rest of the wood using a chisel. Glue the spline into the space we've cut out. After it dries, cut off the excess wood. Then we'll sand everything to a smooth finish. Now just add varnish to seal the wood.